All right.
Making his return to South Philadelphia, and a former NFL player, magician, author, motivational speaker, somebody we're honored to join us. You can see him this Saturday night, October 1st at Live Casino. Welcome to the show, former Eagle John Dorenbos.
Yeah, baby. Thank you so much for having me.
If you get any more titles, I'm going to have to cut the interview after the intro at this point. What's it like to come back to the city where you had so much success performing as a pro player with all these additional talents and names now?
Look, anytime I get to come back to Philly, I love it. The fan base and I've loved every second of it. Somebody asked me recently, they're like, how would you describe the Philly fan base and the relationship that you had with them? So here's what happened is I ended up having open heart surgery. My wife and I went back to Philly. We had the surgery at University of Penn. We're staying at our South Philly condo. And for a while, we would go out and just get mocked. People had questions, concerned, get it. So then we went to Barham East at the Navy Yard. And we're sitting there, and nobody's talking to us. It was like I was a nobody. It was great. I had my heart pillow because if you cough or you laugh, you have to balance the pressure so your sternum doesn't pop open. And nobody bothers us. We eat. I'm on a bunch of meds. I got to shuffle my feet. I'm super weak. And as we stepped off the patio and we started walking to our car, one guy stood up. Two people, then three, then four, then people came out of the restaurant and gave me the slow clap. So I turn around and I start, I was emotional at the time, so I start crying. We get in our car, we wave, we drive away. And as we drive around, the whole restaurant came out and they were cheering and going nuts. So I love Philly. I love the Philly fans. I love that wherever I go in the country, if I do a theater show, it's 40% Eagle fans. I love that if the long snapper is just got a regular hat backwards and a hoodie and is walking in the Dallas airport, there is an Eagles fan that will do the Eagles chant down the terminal of the airport and then go Magic Man. It's awesome, man.
All right. So I got to ask the question because you brought up the long snapper. Philadelphia, Andy Reid, when he interviewed for the job as Eagles head coach, spent a half hour during his interview talking about the importance of the long snapper. Between Andy Reid as the perfect coach for you and this city, is there any place that a long snapper could be more appreciated than the city of Philadelphia?
No, my timing worked out pretty good on that whole scenario, didn't it? It worked out real nice for me. And playing for Coach Reid was one of the highlights of my career. He was definitely a guy that's like, I'd rather just pay the kid and not go cheap and not worry. And so he gave me an opportunity to work through the kinks. He believed in me. And to this day, I'd run through a brick wall for that guy.
What's the thing that you remember most about playing for Andy?
Oh, man. Treat you to a cheeseburger after every meeting. Hey, guys, here we are. Hey, we got a great game today. Didn't matter what city. Give me a city, whatever. Oakland, we're playing the Raiders. Hey, guys, we got a great game. Here's the keys to success. And look, I know a lot of people might not know this about Oakland, but they got pretty good cheeseburgers. So I'm going to treat you to a cheeseburger. Let's go.
Wait, hold on. You didn't have a cheeseburger in Philly, did you?
You have to have
we have cheeseburgers every night before games.
Instead of cheesesteaks?
Oh, well, they would have cheesesteaks as the option. But his big sign-off was they treat you to a cheeseburger. No, you know what? The one thing I really loved about Andy Reid is he valued you as a person. He valued you as an individual. And so, hear me out. I signed with the Eagles. Coach Reid comes up to me and goes, come here, kid. You want to go home, go home. You want to run. You want to work out, work out. You want to snap, go snap. If it's not there on Sunday, you're fired. Be a pro. And I looked at him and I said, Coach, I think you and I are going to get along. So, and what I mean by that is not everybody works the same way, right? Not everybody needs to do the same drills. Not everybody needs to run the same amount. We're all pros. And so he valued that and gave you your freedom to be an adult and to handle yourself as a pro and get ready the way you needed to get ready. And I really respected that.
Well, and in terms of your life experiences being valued like that by your coach, you ended up writing about your life and your journey in the book Life is Magic. Can you talk about how you sort of had a roadmap for shutting down that self-doubt and being able to perform wherever you are, whether it's on the field or in the boardroom when you speak to people or doing magic on stage?
Yeah, so my book was really a lifelong journey that sometimes we don't even know that we're in the heat of it, right? And so when I was 12 years old, my father murdered my mother, and my sister and I went into temporary foster care and went through really intense therapy. And then we eventually moved in with my aunt, who was my mom's sister. And in the therapy, there were three things that we focused on. It was come to terms with your reality, accept it, right? Find forgiveness. And when you find happiness, you grab onto that puppy and you never let go. And so here we are at different stages of our life. The plan might not always go as planned, but the sooner we come to terms with our reality, the sooner we accept it, the sooner that we can find the positive, the sooner that we can find forgiveness, the sooner we can find happiness, the sooner we can make the best of the situation we're in. And so what I learned is that in life, it's very, very simple. If you show up every day on time, prepared, and ready to work in whatever it is you do, you know what I learned about the world? If you don't give up on the world will not give up on you. If you give up on yourself, the world's going to give up on you. So don't ever give up. Keep standing up. And it's what I loved most about Philly too, right? It's the whole Rocky thing, right? Just keep standing up. Doesn't matter how hard you get hit, just keep standing up. And I find that the athletes that do that, that don't point fingers, that don't blame other people, that take some sense of accountability, and they keep standing up no matter how hard they get hit, and they keep working and they keep showing up and they keep improving, the city loves them. And so my book is just that. How do we find happiness? How do we continue to persevere? How do we continue to grow? How do we continue to not only that, but be excited about the obstacles? How do we find motivation to defeat? How do we rewrite our script in our life? And it's all with the words that the story we tell ourselves in our own head. And ultimately, the book, look, I wanted to see my dad for a long time, but nothing in life stemmed action. And so I ended up getting married and my wife got pregnant. And when my wife was pregnant, I realized there's three words I've never said out loud. I've never said, I forgive you out loud. And so my ultimate journey led to 28 years later, sitting down with my dad for 5.5 hours and saying, I forgive you for being really, really lost. And I forgive you for making a really big mistake. And it was my journey to be a better dad than what I had. It was my journey to not let my past be an excuse. And it was my journey to be okay with where I come from and to be okay with the things that have happened in my life because I've learned from it. And I'm not who I was 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and even 2 weeks ago. And I try and be this much better every single day. And so I forgave my dad so that I could be the dad that I never had to my little girl. And that has been by far the love of my life and the best job I've ever had is being a dad.
You know, your story, even just in isolation, just with what you just told, is an inspiration, but it seems like you feel compelled or you think it's important to also give back and be able to help other people who have gone through something similar. What motivates you to use the platform that you've been given or that you've earned as a football player, as a magician, as a speaker, to go and try to help other people?
You know, so I got into speaking in 2003. There was a speaker named Kevin Elko, who was a big time speaker in the financial service industry, was coming through the Bills facility and was doing an event there. And he's also a sports psychologist. And he said, this is what he said. I love this too. This is how I got into speaking. He goes, hey, you're the long snapper, right? He goes, yeah. You're the magician, right? He goes, yeah. Hey, you know that little pencil trick you do? You know, that stupid little pencil trick with the dollar bill and the pencil? And I was like, I mean, I think it's cool. But yeah. He goes, okay, do that and tell your story of how you got into college. And so I did that. And that was the first kind of speaking thing I ever did. Best advice I ever got. After that, Kevin came up to me and said, all right, listen, kid, here's the deal. You can do all the magic you want, but you're not a magician. You need to be a speaker. And then he grew me over time. And what happens is once you start doing it and you share some vulnerability on stage and you start telling your story, I learned that I'm not telling my story so that people can just hear my story. I tell my story because there's certain points that people reflect on their own life and they can think of the decisions they made and they can reflect and they can figure out where they can be better or where they need to have some forgiveness or where they need to be okay with things that have happened to them. And then sure enough, after you're done speaking, I get it all. People come up to me and be like, hey, I was molested. I was raped. My dad killed my brother. My mom did this. And I was like, you know, I was an alcoholic dad. I used to beat my own kids. I haven't talked to my son in 20 years. I just called him for the first time and said, I'm sorry. I had a lady that after a show had a bracelet that Nelson Mandela gave her and it had his prison number embroidered in it. And she said, I think it's time I pass this on to you. And I was like, wow. So you start doing these things and you start seeing the way that people react. And you start feeling like maybe this is my purpose, is that maybe me sharing my story, helping other people is why I'm here. And so I want to say this too, because this is something really, really cool that got brought up when we were writing the book. And a lot of people, when something happens, they feel like the world's kicking them down. They feel like the world's jumping on top of them. They feel like they can't breathe. The world's suffocating them. If it's not one thing or it's another. and they start making excuses, right? They start becoming the victim. For as long as I can remember, I've never felt that way. When something happens to me in the little pretend world that I live up in here, the world's always been cheering for me. So anytime the world knocked me down, I literally felt like the whole world's cheering me on to stand up. So stand up. Like you're in the middle of the arena, the world's cheering, chanting your name right now. You have to stand up, stand up. And it's a difference of perception. It's a difference of the story we tell ourselves. But for me, no matter how hard life gets or whatever obstacle I've been faced with, it's not the world ganging up on me. It's just the world testing me. And then the crowd's cheering me to stand up. And I do.
What does it mean to you to be that light in the darkness for all these different people that you come across, having walked through those dark days yourself?
It's intense, man. You know, with great respect comes great responsibility. You know, I feel like I just want to keep being true to who I am. I want to keep being true to the magic that I love and the show that I love. And I feel like if I do that, then good things will happen. And in time, you affect people in a very positive way. It's one of the biggest compliments ever. I mean, like I said, when people come up after my show, I get everything. And, you know, to hear somebody that says, I haven't talked to my dad in 30 years, I just called him. And the first thing he said is, I'm sorry. As soon as he picked up the phone, he said, I'm sorry. And, you know, maybe it's time that I let go of some things because I haven't been perfect either. And, you know, so forgiveness is it's not, you know, for me, it's not you win, I lose, I'm waving the white flag, right? And let's go be buddies. I'm okay with what you did. Ha, 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 fist bump, let's move on. So for me, forgiveness was nothing more than this. And check this out. If you can either relate or know somebody that will directly relate to this. Two people are married, they get divorced. One goes on and lives their married life, never looks back. The other keeps living and is bitter and resentful and constantly talking about this other person that has gone every day of their life living in happiness. One lives in vision, one lives in circumstance. So to me, the idea of forgiveness was I'm going to take a step in my life where somebody that's no longer in my life is going to affect my life. Think about that. How many people go through life when somebody no longer in their life is affecting their life in a negative way? So when I went and forgave my dad, it was me basically saying that little ball of anger and resentment and bitterness that I've been holding on to for a long time, it's gone. I don't care anymore. I hope you're doing great things. I don't care if you're out of prison. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. You're not in my life anymore. And I'm going to be everything that I never had. And peace out. When I left that lunch that we had, it was symbolic. I literally took a step. And it was like the first step of my new life. So don't look at forgiveness as winning and losing. Look at it as releasing yourself, freeing yourself, and not living in bitter and angerness and resentment.
You know, you went through this whole journey, but when you were 12, that journey started with a tragedy, but led to you doing magic, which is why you're in Philadelphia this weekend. What led you to magic, and what led you to become as good as you are? You appeared on America's Got Talent. You were a finalist on a pretty amazing show with people doing all sorts of crazy things. What led you and motivated you to be as good at magic as you were as a long snapper?
So it's funny because I think when I got into magic, I didn't get into it to be a magician. So I was 12, 13 years old, living, I had just left the temporary foster home. I was living with a little league baseball coach because I made the all-star team. And their neighbor was Michael Groves, who was a 16-year-old magician, and he did a few tricks. And I thought it was unbelievable. So what happens is he takes me down and he takes me to the magic shop. I learn a few tricks. What I figured out is that if I sat in a corner and shuffled cards, it's the only time in my childhood that the world quieted. The sound of the riffle was the only time I felt like I was just a kid. And I wasn't thinking about losing not just one parent, but both, and the foster and moving and my dad going to prison. And I would shuffle and get lost. And I wanted to get lost in being a kid as much as I possibly could. And so I would learn these moves. You know, it's funny because when I started dabbling in the guitar and when I started playing, I was like, okay, like literally first day. All right, how does Hendrix play? How does Mayer play? How does Eric Clapton play? How does Stevie Ray Vaughan play? First things I ever learned were like Clapton solos. And so when I did card stuff, I was like, who's the best in the world? All right, let's do his stuff. And then I taught myself my own technique. And then all of a sudden you do this for years and years and years and years. you hope that you would get pretty good at something, right? After you spend this much time. And so then all of a sudden you kind of come into your personality, right? And then I was the kid in high school who showed up at a little get together, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, I can do a card trick. And then it's like, you just like regurgitate like 10 years of like being obsessed with, having this lonely childhood. It's like, okay, so you take card tricks a lot more seriously than the other kids. You know what I mean? So, and that's kind of how it happened. And then as I just progressed, life just took me on a stream where, the other thing I'm really thankful for is I had a mentor named Ken Sands who he taught me tricks, but he also taught me that the magic trick's not the end all be all, right? If you do a trick and you're looking for that to be the end all be all, you're going to get a golf clap. But if you can get people to care about who you are, why you're there, and what you're doing, then you can make a coin disappear in an arena and get a standing ovation. And then we don't need another David Copperfield. So don't be them, be you. And so sure enough, when I did America's Got Talent, that was like a platform for me to kind of show the magic world who I am and what I stand for and what my style is all about. And, look, here's the reality. You got like your Star Warsian people and then your Star Trekian people. And then below all of that are magicians. We are the dorkiest of the dork. We take the cake on all that, right? So it's been cool to kind of bring a little swag to that kind of genre of stuff.
It seems like in addition to being entertaining, magic is sort of your gateway to storytelling. What's it like to do magic before an arena of people after playing in front of stadiums where you're on a team? Now the spotlight's on you on the stage in a packed house. What's that like?
It's rock star, man. It's rock star. It's everything I've ever dreamed of. Look, I wanted to be a rock star, but I can't sing, I can't dance, and I can't play an instrument that well, right? So check that off the box. It's funny.
So we don't have to add musician the next time we introduce you.
I can Adam Sandler it, right? I can play some riffs and sing some funny songs. I got you there. But other than that, no.
That sounds like a whole nother show for you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So here's a funny story. So I'm in junior college and I had a chance to play baseball, and it was baseball or football, and baseball was just too slow. So I was like, all right, let's go football, because I wanted to play in front of 100,000 people, right? And baseball wasn't going to happen. So all of a sudden I go to UTEP, first game's Oklahoma, 98,612 people, first game. Oh, so
close.
But not 100. All right, so now check this out. I don't play in front of 100,000 people until Dallas builds their new stadium. So now I'm with the Eagles. We go to Dallas, and look, we play Kentucky, Alabama, Texas A&M, but none of them were 100,000. And so sure enough, I get to Dallas, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I look at Donnie Jones, the point. I'm like, Donnie, do you have any idea what this is? He's like, no, what's up, man? And Donnie played at LSU, so he was like, it's like another Tuesday for him, right? So I go, there's 100,000 people here. He goes, yeah. I go, do you have any idea how cool that is? He goes, yeah. So now all of a sudden, I'm in the tunnel. I'm the first one to run out. And I can't wait, because I've been dreaming of the moment I run out in front of 100,000 people and they go nuts. Well, Donnie and I ran out of the tunnel together, and it was in my head, they were cheering. But in Dallas, I had 107,000 people booing me, right? So I get to the star, and I'm standing on the star, and I'm like this. In an away stadium, I'm going like this, right? And Donnie's like, what are you doing? I'm like, bro, in my head, they were cheering, but they're booing right now. And it's also cool. Just take it in, take it in. All right, let's go. He's like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, don't worry about it. I'll tell you later. But hey, anytime you can get that rock star feeling, right? Anytime you can be on stage and just feel I'm an energy guy, right? And I think about this too, not just the energy from stage, but I think the way you view yourself, the way you talk to yourself, it's the same way you're going to view the world. It's the same way you're going to talk about the world. So if you can harness this energy and create this energy in an arena, in a theater, in an auditorium, wherever it is, man, it's rock star, and it's totally addicting. It's like being an adrenaline junkie without having to do roller coasters and all that, right? And then all of a sudden, everybody leaves my show feeling good about life. Dude, that's a fun day at work, man.
It must be just a completely different feeling. As a football player, you may be in front of 100,000 people, but you have a helmet on. You're kind of anonymous, especially as somebody who's playing on a line. And then all of a sudden, you have no mask on. You have
Until
no
you
protection.
commit a penalty.
Yeah, you have no. Yeah, right. You have no protection from the world and that booing and things like that. Is when you first started doing to these large groups of people, was there any part of you that was intimidated by it?
No, actually excited. Intimidated is the wrong word. I was excited. And here's something else too. When you're in the NFL, especially now with how big sports betting has gotten, I've witnessed it. Death threats are real. I've seen players and coaches escorted home by FBI agents, put into full bodyproof like bulletproof outfits. So you mess up in a game and you affect spreads and betting, the wrong people get involved, you get death threats, right? You mess up in a show and I miss your card. Oh, nobody cares. You push on. Don't ask me about it later. We all have a good chuckle and we move on. Like, what's the
Nobody's
worst that's
fantasy
gonna...
team lost
Oh,
because your card trick went wrong.
yeah, or I'll tell you what, I had like 12. I had a lot of surgeries when I played, believe it or not. And so, like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen to me? I get a paper cut. Oh, like, it's like this is great, guys. What could go wrong? You know what I mean? It's easy. It's easy.
So then if I understand right, you combined your love of cards with your ability to come across a lot of celebrities now. Is it true that you get an autograph of every famous person that you perform with on playing cards and hang it up in your house?
Yeah. So I was never like an autograph collector. It was more the memory. I was a memory collector. And so every celeb or person I played with, they've signed playing cards. And so in my house, it's not even so much 8x10s, right? It's all playing cards signed by all these people that I've come across the way. My favorite, so I wanted to meet three people, right? I was a fan of Garth Brooks, Jay Leno, Adam Sandler. Those are the three. 2003, Garth Brooks has a foundation called Teammates for Kids, and it's for athletes to partner up with them. And I get invited, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I do magic for Garth Brooks, flipping out. So then we're at the Mirage in Las Vegas. Garth Brooks says this to me, John, you got to come meet a friend of mine. I was like, yeah, let's go. We go into the next room. Garth Brooks introduces me to Jay Leno. My mind just goes, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, right? So I got to meet those two, rock star. And then Adam Sandler was coming through Philly and he was doing a show at the Tower Theater. And his guy called me and said, hey, Sandler's kids are fans of yours from AGT. He'd love to see some tricks. Do you want to come backstage? What? So, I really, magic led me to Garth Brooks, Jay Leno, and Adam Sandler, the three people I always wanted to meet. So, but yeah, that's what I do. And you know what's really cool? There are some celebs that don't like to sign, right? And there are people that don't want to ask the celebrity for autographs because they don't want to make it weird. Well, when you're the football playing magician guy doing card tricks, it's always okay to ask for a signature. Always.
Who's the obviously those three were the ones you wanted autographs from. Who's the one that just came up to you out of the blue that you just went, wow, I can't believe this person's asking me?
Oh wow. Well, this happens. I'm at UTEP and I have a QMB class, which is what, quantitative math of business. So I had a QMB test coming up, but I was leaving for my first workout with the Bills, like my first mini camp. So I leave UTEP. I'm going to Buffalo. I land at the hotel. My phone rings. Hey, John, Jim Kelly. Of course it is. I'm in Buffalo, Jim Kelly. Why wouldn't it be, right? Hey, I'm having an event. Coach Williams said you can come. I'm picking you up in the morning. You cool with that? Bring some cards. We're excited to see the Magic Man. I was like, no problem. Limo rolls up 8:30 the next morning. Keep in mind, this is my very first experience in the NFL.
This doesn't sound like a typical rookie experience, by the way.
No. Out of the limo comes Jim Kelly, Joe Montana, Dan Marino, Thurman Thomas, Daryl Talley, Bruce Smith, Drew Bledsoe, Jason Taylor, Chris McDonald, the actor Shooter McGavin, and they're all in this limo going to the event. And I was like, holy, like, and then I just did a bunch of stuff for all those guys, and it was rock star, man. It was awesome. It's one of those things where two professions that I'm sure so many people in my life said he's not going to make any money playing football. And he's sure as heck not going to make any money being a magician. Like, who's going to want to date this guy? You know what I mean? Loser. And now all of a sudden, both of them together is what separated me my whole life. And even when I come across actors, right? There's a lot of actors that are big Eagles fans. And I was always welcomed and like, you got to come to the VIP after party. You got to do the magic for so-and-so and so-and-so. And I was like, dude, heck yeah. But I was always the NFL guy. So actors want to be NFL guys want to be actors. And it was just, and then I was a card trick guy. So it separated me in a crowd of many.
Well, you have, just so everyone knows, Mike Tolan, who has been on this show, who did one of the producers of The Last Dance, has the rights, I believe, to your story now. If you had your choice, who would you want to play you? And second, do you want to be in that movie too?
Oh man, you know what? There's a lot. Look, I think Chris Pratt would be amazing. Miles Teller's a Philly guy and did an interview that he wants to be he wants to play a Philly sports player, and I know he's a Phillies fan, but I know he's an Eagles fan. He wanted to be a Philadelphia athlete. So, I think Miles Teller would be cool. I'm buddies with John Krasinski. Like, I think Krasinski would be cool. I don't know when you talked to Mike last, but the script is amazing. So John Gatins wrote it. He wrote Flight with Denzel. And if I can I share just the synopsis?
Yeah.
So the basic premise is, so I'm the third character in my own movie, which I already like that. I think that's really cool. There's a guy in New York, and he's kind of a distant dad, rich guy, and his company, he was losing his company from underneath him. And so his company said, let's bring in Dorenbos. Like, he's just motivational. And they gave him my book. And the guy's like, dude, what is this clown? Like, what do you guys want to bring in a magician? Are you serious right now? This is a joke. He goes home. His ex-wife's leaving to get married. His daughter comes to stay with him, who he's not really a good dad, teenage daughter. Teenage daughter sees my book in the dad's bag and says, oh my gosh, like, are you going to work with Dorenbos? Like, I loved him on AGT. I read his book. Dad, you have to read this book. This guy's a clown show, dude. He's a clown. So he doesn't read it. He ends up going to work the next day. And the daughter tries to commit suicide in his apartment in New York when he's at work. So now all of a sudden, the daughter's in a coma in the hospital. And the dad gets the call. So the dad rushes down to the hospital, and he's sitting at the bedside of his daughter. And he looks over and sees the book in his bag. And he reads my book to his daughter while she's in a coma. And so my life story is kind of told Princess Bride, where the grandpa reads the book to the kid. And now the story is really about those two and how they kind of come to terms with what the reality is, what the past is, and what the future might be, all in the context of reading my book. And it's amazing. I'm super proud of it.
It sounds just as powerful as your actual life story, which is kind of difficult to fathom you could do that. The show is this Saturday night at Live Casino. Tell our listeners what they can expect if they see you to get their tickets, and are you expecting an Eagles chant?
Yeah, right. So it's so funny. So every theater I go to, it's like 40% Eagles fans, even out of state. And they all do the Eagles chant as soon as I walk out. And it's just like, hey, just so you know, like, let's just say we're in Kansas City, right? Just so you know, the other 60% of this theater hate all of you. And I love you. You know what I mean?
Especially Dallas.
Yeah, right. Oh, Dallas, they go hardcore there. Like, they're even louder, right? Because it's Dallas. Ray, real quick, to go back, you said Mike Tolan. Here's what's really cool about this. I believe this, and I've never met anybody, and I'm not trying to sound like that guy right now, but I guess I am. You come across life and you come across people. I'm really good at manifesting things in my life, and you got to believe it. You got to taste it, smell it, hear it. You got to talk to yourself about it. You got to let the world know through energy and just believing and showing up every day on time, prepared and ready to work, that that's the direction you're headed. And the world, again, right? Don't give up on the world. The world's not going to give up on you. And so my buddy was doing a movie called Radio. He was number 3 on the call sheet. His name was Riley Smith. And Radio was with Ed Harris, Cuba Gooding Jr., and my buddy Riley. And at the time, my buddy goes, yo, you got to meet our producer director. He's like, from Philly. He's a huge Philly guy. His name's Mike Tolan. And so my buddy Riley connects Mike and I. That's when we first met. And my buddy Riley was like, yo, dude, they got to do a movie on your life. Like, Tolan has to do it. Like, you got to get Tolan to do a movie. And at that moment, I said, you know what? There's nobody else I want to do my movie than Tolan. And so we just kind of, and it got brought up a couple times, and then we had a friendship. And then as my life kept progressing, he kind of came up to me one day and he goes, hey, man, what do you think about doing a movie on your life? He goes, but I need a third act. Like, I get where we're at, but I just need a third act. And then all of a sudden, when he said that, I got traded, right after I tied the record for 162 straight games. I got traded to the Saints, went into open heart surgery. Wife got pregnant, and I went to go forgive my dad. And Tolan called me and goes, okay, I think we got the third act. You know what I mean? So, but he was the only one that I ever wanted to do it. And sure enough, here we are.
Did you really need to get sick for a third act, though? I mean, we get that you do everything 100% full speed ahead, but you couldn't have come up with like a third act that would have been a little less traumatic.
I know, right? I just thought, hey, go big, go home.
Well, we're glad you went big, told the story, and gave us a few minutes to hear all about it. Encourage everybody to go see you this Saturday night at Live Casino. John Dorenbos, thanks so much for the time and for everything you do, inspiring some other people to see the light a little bit every day.
Yeah. Hey, you guys are rock stars. Thanks for having me. And for those that want to come out on Saturday night, I promise you, I read a quote when I was getting into performing and I forgot who it was and I'm so embarrassed. But it was basically like, they're not going to remember what you say. They're not going to remember what you did, but they're going to remember the way you made them feel. And so when you come to my show, I tell you this, my 3 influences are Garth Brooks, Carrot Top, and Mike Tyson. Garth Brooks, because if you've never seen him on stage, when you watch him, you feel like you're the only one there and you feel like it's the first and last show he'll ever do and he's giving you everything he has. Carrot Top, there's nobody more genius at just music sound bites and just quick hitters that just pop in the show to keep your attention, right? And then Mike Tyson. If you haven't seen Mike Tyson's one-man show, I've never seen the most feared man in the world, right, be more self-deprecating, funny, and vulnerable. So it's all of those mixed up. I hope that you're going to come to the show. I hope that you're going to laugh. You're going to be amazed with amazing magic. But I also hope that you're going to sit there and maybe reflect on 1 or 2 things. They might be little or they might be big in your life. And you're going to leave feeling better about yourself and the world around you. And hopefully feel inspired to make the right change in your life, whether it's big or small. And that's my goal. And we've been successful doing it. So life is magic. I appreciate you all having me. Live casino this Saturday, 8:00, baby. If you ain't there, I'll say it again. You're wrong, baby.
That's the best pitch we can get, John Dorenbos. Have a great one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.